Today we are going to talk about microbial production of citric acid. The group members are Ines, Comin, Andre, Casper and Kyrie. So the scope of today is the introduction, the history, why is citric acid important, factors affecting citric acid fermentation, biochemistry of citric acid production, accumulation of citric acid, industrial production of citric acid, bioproduction of citric acid from industrial byproducts, citric acid recovery, and the demand and cost of producing citric acid. Firstly is the introduction to citric acid. Citric acid is the most important organic acid produced in tonnage and is extensively used in food and pharmaceutical industries. It is produced mainly by submerged fermentation using Aspergillus niger or Candida st from different sources of carbohydrates such as molasses and starch-based media. It was first isolated by Carl Stills in 1874 from lemon juice. It was sold at high cost for almost 100 years until alternative methods of production was discovered. In 1917, Curry found that Aspergillus niger had the capacity to accumulate significant amounts of citric acid, and it was then improved in 1984 by the US.
Okay, so why is citric acid important? In biochemistry, it is important as an intermediate in the citric acid cycle and therefore occurs in the metabolism of almost all living things. It also serves as an environmentally benign cleaning agent and acts as an antioxidant. So the factors affecting citric acid fermentation. The conditions for citric acid fermentation were established during the 30th and 40th when the effects of various components of the fermentation medium were evaluated. The accumulation of citric acid is strongly influenced by the composition of the medium, especially in submerged fermentation processes. The main factors affecting the citric fermentation are the type and concentration of carbon source, nitrogen and phosphate limitation, pH, aeration, oligoelements, concentration and morphology of the producing microorganisms. Certain nutrients have to be in excess, such as sugars, protons or oxygens. Others at limiting levels, such as nitrogen and phosphate, and others below well-established threshold values, such as trace metals, particularly manganese. So the factors affecting citric acid production, carbon source. Polysaccharides as a carbon source for citric acid production is a widely researched topic. In general, only the sugars that are quickly assimilated by the microorganisms allow high final yield of citric acid. The most widely used carbon sources in industrial fermentations are glucose syrups from starch hydrolysis, sugar beet molasses, and low-quality sugarcane byproducts. The concentration of carbon source is also crucial for citric fermentation. The final yield of citric acid increases with initial sugar concentration in batch processes or glucose feeding rate in chemostat, while the specific growth rate has an opposite behavior. So, factors affecting citric acid production, nitrogen source. The consumption of nitrogen leads to a decrease in pH, which is important in the fermentation process. However, it is necessary to maintain pH values in the first day of fermentation prior to a certain quantity biomass production. The concentration of nitrogen source required for citric acid fermentation is 0.1 to 0.4 n per liter.
Factors affecting citric acid production, pH of culture medium. The pH of the medium is important in two stages of the process. All fermentation start from spores and their germination requires a pH of more than 5. The absorption of ammonia by germinating spores causes the release of protons, thus lowering the pH and improving the production of citric acid. The low pH value during the production phase, where pH is lower than 2, reduces the risk of contamination by other microorganisms and inhibits the production of unwanted organic acids, which makes the product recovery easier. Aeration brings water and air in close contact in order to remove dissolved gases. The rate of aeration can have a detrimental effect on performance. If the aeration rate is too high, the partial pressure of dissolved CO2 in the broth may be too low. Carbon dioxide is important as a substrate for pyruvate carboxylase that replenishes the supply of oxaloacetate for citrate synthase. On the contrary, high levels of CO2 in the gas are detrimental for the final concentration of citric acid biomass. Another factor affecting citric acid production is trace elements. Aspergillus niger requires certain trace metals for growth. However, a limitation by other trace elements is necessary for citric acid production, especially in the submerged fermentation. The metals that should be in limiting concentrations are zinc, manganese, iron, copper, and heavy metals. Another factor affecting citric acid production is the morphology of fungus. The main factors affecting the morphology of Aspergillus niger in submerged cultures and then influence the process performance are the agitation intensity, medium pH growth rate, nutritional factors, and inoculum type and concentration. The preferred morphology associated with an increase in production was obtained at pH values 2.0 to 2 plus or minus 2.2. At pH 1.6, the morphological development was abnormal and production fell sharply, while at pH 3, aggregates had longer perimeters and oxalic acid formation was observed.
The biochemistry of citric acid production is by definition the overproduction of citric acid dehydrogenase in Aspergillus niger, NAD positive dependent form present in mitochondria at low concentrations, and two NADP positive dependent forms, one in the mitochondria and the other in the cytoplasm. All require magnesium 2 plus or manganese 2 plus, and the NADP plus dependent form is inhibited by citric and alpha ketoglutaric acids, which ensures the accumulation of citric acid. The industrial production of citric acid is carried out by the commonly used technique for citric acid production, and it is estimated that about 80% of world production of citric acid is produced by SMF. Conventional stirred fermenters and power fermenters are used. Sterilization is performed by steaming. Cooling can be done by an external water film over the entire outside wall of the fermenter, and this method is favored as it is a low cost and higher method. Finally, to the introduction of.
Alright, so next we're gonna talk about the introduction of citric acid, which is the surface culture. The simple surface culture methods used during the first commercial production require intensive labor. Surface liquid cultures are usually carried out batch-wise, using fermentation broths prepared from wheat bran, potato starch, glucose syrup, or molasses. Steam sterilization is carried out on nutrient medium on aluminum trays. It is then inoculated by injecting dry spores before incubation. Temperature is usually maintained constant by a stream of sterile air to accelerate the growth. Alpha amylase can be added. Following that, we're going to be talking about the industrial production of citric acid using submerged cultures. Depending on the type of agitation, submerged processes can be divided in mechanically mixed or agitated by air circulation. Most of them are carried out batch-wise in conventional or airlift fermenters with 120 to 250 meter cube or 900 meter cube volume respectively. Spores germinate at 32 degrees Celsius in a breatharometer using a molasses solution containing 150 grams per liter of sugar in the presence of cyanide ions. Addition of cyanide ions in insufficient amounts favors biomass growth but affects the subsequent production of citric acid. 80% of the world population of citric acid is obtained by submerged cultures, which have the advantage of lower investment and maintenance costs compared with surface cultures. Disadvantages are high cost of energy and more sophisticated technology. This slide shows the production flow diagram using glucose to produce citric acid. Next we're going to be talking about the industrial production of citric acid by process with yeast from hydrocarbons. In addition to A. niger, several yeasts, among which Candida cannula and Candida gulia, Mondi, Yaroya, Politica, and etc. have been described that form large amounts of citric acid from N alkanes, or even through lower yield from glucose.
The yield is higher than with carbohydrates, but there are difficulties associated with low water solubility of alkanes and the presence of up to 50% of isocitric acid along with the products, which has to be separated during recovery.
Next, we're going to be talking about the bioproduction of citric acid from industrial byproducts. The recombinant strain coli was shown to be able to ferment Ebrabiones and gala-citronic acid obtained from enzymatic hydrolysis.
Of orange peel to acetic acid ethanol, carbon dioxide, and small amounts of lactic acid. Due to the presence of inhibitors such as limonene, the fermentation of these hydrolysates by the yeast Saccharomyces cerevisiae did not give interesting results. After removal by filtration, the yeast was shown to ferment well. Only hexoses such as glucose, fructose, and galactose released by enzymatic hydrolysis of the polysaccharides contained in the peel, but not pentose, arabinose, and xylose, or galacturonic acid.
Alright. Next is the citric acid recovery, which includes 3 basic procedures: precipitation, extraction, and absorption, and recommended suitable for use in food and drugs in 1975. Lastly, we're going to be talking about the demand and cost of producing citric acid. The global citric acid market exceeded the volume of 2 million tons in 2018. The market is further projected to reach a volume of nearly 3 million tons by 2024, growing at a CAGR of 4% during 2019 to 2024. The cost of production of citric acid is stated to be around $1.40 USD for 1 kg of citric acid when taking into account of total operating costs, which includes cost of raw materials, labor, labs, waste treatment, disposal, and utilities.
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you.